rancid gore. Through the sewer pipes I'll crawl to the horror hall. To the hall where vampires scream. Happy Halloween. From the
What's up, posers? Or possessors? Welcome to Punk Lotto Pod. I'm your co-host, Justin Hensley. Or, oh man, we should have thought up Simpsons names. Oh, gut-bustin' Grinsley.
I'm Dylan Demon Boy Hensley.
I mean, it's killing Hensley, really.
Yeah. Demon Boy is my classic nickname because I wore all black to Wednesday church one time. I wore a black shirt and black jeans, and my cousin called me Demon Boy.
I completely forgot about that. Oh, welcome to our first of 3 Halloween Spooktaculars for 2023.
First of 3.
Oh, yes. The gimmick that we instigated year 1, like we had done like 10 episodes and we were like, let's do a gimmick. Not even 10. I think it was like we did 7 episodes and we were like, let's do 4 weeks of horror themed episodes. And we did it the following year. And then I think we did like this super truncated, like maybe like 2 years in a row, we only did like 1 or 2 things like that. We forgot to do it one year and we're like, oh, I guess we could do something like kind of spooky. But yeah, this year we're doing it kind of in line with our like season format that we introduced earlier this year. Much like our Skagist. This is a theme where we talk about horror punk / death rock, psychobilly, and gothic rock exclusively for, 3 weeks. So we break it down by each of those subgenres. And before we get into which subgenre you selected and what album we're going to talk about today, if you want more spooky material, head on over to our Patreon, patreon.com/punklautopod. For $1, you get access to all of our weekly bonus audio, videos, blog posts, everything. There's some like 200 posts over there on the Patreon. And last week, we did a Master Punk Theater where we discussed the 1996 horror teen drama, The Craft.
Yes, The Craft. Really fun. It was. I enjoyed watching that movie. My wife said I really liked watching that movie the day after watching it. So it made a pretty big impression on the Hensley household.
And this Hensley household, my wife has been a long-time fan of this movie. So it was an easy, you want to watch this? And she's like, yes, I'm going to bed now, but leave it on. So I'm sure she had wonderful dreams of casting spells. But neither of us had ever seen the movie before, meaning you and me, Dylan and I. So it was nice to get kind of a big movie for, is it for our generation? I guess kind of. Yeah, came out in 1996, yeah.
Yeah. Our generation and like the youngest Gen Xers probably.
Yeah. But yeah, you get that along with any other movie reviews we've ever done under the Master Punk Theater. And if you want to get spooky, there's our Return of the Living Dead review that we did over there. And you could check that one out. I actually just listened to a podcast about that exact movie and its soundtrack this week. Another podcast. And yeah, it just got me thinking about that movie. I'm like, man, that is a fun movie. It's a really good movie. And the soundtrack kicks ass. Have we done any other horror movies like that for Master Punk Theater?
Well, not a horror movie, but we did Repo Man. That's at least related. Yeah, more sci-fi than horror, but still has some like thriller elements to it. Yeah, not seasonally locked or anything. Like, yeah, no, we haven't done any other. I can't think of any other horror movies that we've done. Yeah, I'm doing a quick glance over at our Patreon. There's actually this. Patreon allows us to do collections, and what I've done is I've collected all of our gimmicks together. So if you wanted to see or hear all of the Master Punk Theaters we recorded, they're together there under that collection tab. But yeah, you're right. I'm not seeing anything else that's like really horror-y, because we did like we've done a couple documentaries and then a couple more like comedy type things. But yeah, Dudes. Yeah, it's like Dudes is kind of like it's got a thriller
skeleton around it, but yeah.
I mean, we haven't done Green Room, and even that's not even like an October horror movie. Like that's a thriller you can watch anytime.
Yeah. So if you want to check out more, that's patreon.com/punklautopod. And yeah,
which we should do Green Room for a Master Punk Theater. That's one we haven't done.
Yeah.
I just saw on TV that the Movies Network that I leave our TV on like 24/7 with the volume down was showing Class of 1984.
I thought about that one. There's Class of Nukem High is another one. And then even like Surf Nazis Must Die is supposed to be kind of punky. I specifically looked up like punk horror movies, and every article like lists the exact same like 10 movies. And they include like Repo Man too. So even those like lists are like reaching for like another horror movie to put in there. So yeah, Green Room is like probably the actual best horror movie, like most critically acclaimed horror movie with punk as its like main focus. I haven't watched it since the first time I watched it. And
really?
Yeah, I've only seen it the one time.
You've only watched Green Room one time? I watched that twice in the same week. I mean, I worked at the movie theater when that came out, so I saw it for free, but I saw it twice. I probably saw it like less than 2 days apart, 2 times.
I think I own it on Blu-ray too, even.
Yeah, I own it. I've watched it on Blu-ray at least once. Love that movie. I have
the Blu-ray copy right here, and there's a Nazi Patrick Stewart right there looking at you. But yeah, I haven't watched it more than the one time, which still wrapped, so it means I didn't watch this copy. So I think I got it from like Redbox or something. But yeah, we should do that one at some point. Good movie, gruesome, very violent film, but it's good. It's really well done. So, does that director? I meant to look him up. Does he have he has something coming out soon? Jeremy Saulnier.
He did Blue Ruin. I haven't seen that one.
I didn't like that one that much. Oh, weirdly, he did 2 episodes of the 3rd season of True Detective. That's interesting. So he's got something.
Dark came out in 2018. That's the only other thing I see.
That's a pretty good one too.
I didn't see that one.
So he has a movie called Rebel Ridge coming out. It's a high velocity thriller that explores systemic American injustices through bone-breaking action sequences, suspense, and dark humor. So he's like, you know what? I'm gonna make another Green Room. It's really what that reads like. Then he's got another one in development called The Defection, but that's all that is known about that one. He also is a producer. I wonder, has he produced anything? No, he did. He produced something in 2007. So
Rebel Ridge will have Don Johnson in it.
Interesting. He is a producer on something called The Order, which is a series of bank robberies and a car heist frightened communities throughout the Pacific Northwest. A lone FBI agent believes the crimes were not work of traditional financially motivated criminals, but a group of dangerous domestic terrorists, which this stars Nicholas Hoult and Jude Law and Ty Sheridan and Journey Smollett and Mark Maron. Interesting. So he's got a producer credit coming out soon, but he didn't direct that one. But anyway, this is not. Well, we got some Master Punk Theater ideas in the future, but let's get into our Halloween Spooktacular. So I left it up to you to be like, which genre do you want to tackle for your selection? And I kind of assumed you were going to go this way, but you selected psychobilly.
I did. So my reasoning for selecting psychobilly, I don't remember if I said this at the end of the last episode, if we decided that on air, or if that was after. But I can repeat it here. It's the dark alternate timeline where I go down the rockabilly path, evil Dylan, as I call him.
If you were a true demon boy,
instead of my adjacent, broadly vintage wearing late 60s muscle car driving, not rockabilly listening, but classic country fan. It's the good version. It's the good version of rockabilly. It's where you're like, I'm not wearing a costume and I like things because I just like them, not because if it's a weird little gimmick that I need to perform daily.
It's not nearly as much of a subculture that you're like steeped in.
Yeah.
Because the only jobs you would be allowed to have is tattoo artist or hairstylist. So barber, or I guess you're allowed to be a mechanic too. You can work on classic muscle cars.
For sure. You can be a mechanic. You're just doing oil changes all the time, and you got your tattoos and your pompadour.
So psychobilly is a genre that is credited to being created by the Cramps, and they're like, wait, what? No, don't give us that tag. No. Refused that term over the years. Maybe they weren't so much like against the term, but they were just more against the like, oh man, look at these clowns. Coming from people who wear costumes literally all the time.
They stole our bit, and they're doing it so poorly.
But most, I guess, who are the, like, if we're going to say a psychobilly band, it's the Necromantics, it's Tiger Army. Who's big in that? Reverend Horton Heat, I guess. But he's so different from them.
He's so Texan. He's so much more a part of the Southern culture on the Skids, retro rock, kind of thing. The just generally, even like Smash Mouth is kind of in the same category as a Reverend Horton Heat. I mean, technically speaking, yes, Reverend Horton Heat is psychobilly because it is rockabilly with like a gimmick, I guess. I don't know. I feel like you can't really play rockabilly without doing the whole thing.
Yeah, without, I guess, like, there's a difference in, like, you're just a rockabilly artist versus a psychobilly artist, because, like, the psychobillies tend to include very specific things, like their hair and makeup is, like, done in very specific ways, whereas with rockabilly, you're kind of allowed to just have any kind of hair you want. Like, you don't have to go for, like, the pompadours and or, like, the Brian sets or, like, curly boof in the front of the head, like
the teddies.
Yeah, the teddy look. Like, I've definitely seen like pictures of rockabilly bands where they all just have like normal hair, short hair. Psychobillies, though, it feels like you have to be like, no, I gotta do the thing. I gotta have the flat top or a devil lock. That's the Tiger Army take on it, right? And their tattoos rockabilly guys feel like they're allowed to just get typical shitty tattoos, like the Lucero also went up with bad tattoos. But the psychobillies are like, well, we got to get coffins and spider webs and skulls, lots of skulls. Cars. It's just very like a set of rules. Like, you got to do these things. Whereas rockabilly guys can be like, I got a shitty lipstick tattoo and I got a gun tattoo in my waistline, so it looks like I'm always carrying a gun. Like,
yeah. Just like general Sailor Jerry classic tattooing, very flash driven based, not as much neo-traditional, much more just like picking it straight off the wall, but less emphasis on the horror angle,
Yeah. Psychobillies have to wear black.
Black. They kind of share, the cobwebs and biker dust. I feel like that's appropriate space filler on both sides, but yeah, psychobilly so fixated on being a caricature.
Yeah, they definitely feel more like a caricature than just rockabilly artists, because I don't think of like, I mean, I guess they're rockabilly people. I feel like the psychobilly people are a little bit more, their shit looks too clean. I think that's how the difference between like a rockabilly and a psychobilly is. The psychobilly stuff looks like, oh, that's new denim. Like, it's very black, very new. It hasn't been faded by washing.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's stage clothes, and then there's like the fan base.
I feel like even the fan base is like wearing stuff they just bought.
I don't know. The rockabilly subculture, the pinup, like the pinup repro brand subculture, like not as much of a thing anymore, but was pretty strong for a while. There was a lot of new stuff, people buying new clothes, and it also depends on, and in both of these genres, this is more so in rockabilly, you have the women who are into it are like super into it, and they're like immaculate and super detailed. The guys who are into rockabilly, you have more of the, well, my wife likes this rockabilly stuff, so I do too kind of guys in there. Psychobilly, there's a little more buy-in on both, men and women. other people that participate in that subculture. They're like, yeah. I got the black jeans, the black shoes. I got the leather jacket. I got all the tattoos in like a year.
Yeah.
Because you can't show up with patchy, a handful of tattoos. You gotta be covered.
So I thought what we would do is, before we get into the record, is that we would take a look at the other spooky music going on around the same time as our album we're talking about today. So the album we're talking about today was released in 2004. So we went to the old Rate Your Music charts and pulled up any 2004 albums that fall under horror punk, death rock, psychobilly, and gothic rock, just to see what we're kind of dealing with as a genre, or as 4 distinct different genres, really, is what it is. But around the same time, right off the top, we've definitely come to the conclusion that gothic rock is the accepted version of all these genres, like the most widely accepted version of all these genres. It's the one that most people listen to, and it's the one that most people listen to the music from that are not like part of the subculture, because The Cure released a self-titled record that year. That's the one with like the drawing on a piece of paper cover.
It's really bad.
It's the worse. The more I look at it, the worse it is. It's a terrible cover. People like late Cure. I've never heard any late Cure that I actually cared about, like mid 90s and beyond, that I've never really cared about. But people like The Cure, I guess. This is interesting. This list includes A Perfect Circle. Is it though? Is it goth?
It's in the secondary tags. As far as like the things that are like primarily gothic rock, 69 Eyes.
Oof.
That feels like that's a little more of a subculture pick.
Yeah.
Well, you got kind of like your gothic metal. There's a Lake of Tears record.
Yeah. Gothic metal is also its own whole thing too. Like,
it really is.
The same year we have Tiger Army 3, Ghost Tigers Rise. This is their third album, but Tiger Army really feel like they were the last new band allowed to be added to like the psychobilly like catalog that anyone outside of psychobilly knows anything about. Like,
and they're still big.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this is just like an LA thing, but they recently played here at the Hollywood Palladium, which is where I saw Jawbreaker and the Gaslight Anthem. Pretty substantial venue, pretty big. Like, when I saw that they were on the marquee, I was like, Tiger Army is playing to that many people? They're big, weirdly. Still around, still going. It might be one of the only ones. It's interesting. So as much as like rock is the more accessible genre that we're limiting to this time of year, 2004 is a pretty big year for psychobilly specifically, because it's the album that we're talking about, the Tiger Army record. There's a Reverend Horton Heat record. There is a Necromantics record. There's the legendary Shack Shakers record. There's a Southern Culture on the Skids record.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I was thinking, I was like, where are the goth bands? And then I guess it's kind of true. Like, I feel like goth didn't really become a thing. Like, goth rock didn't get big again until like the 2010s, maybe, because all the like emo bands at the time were like lifting The Cure in their their stuff at this point.
Well, like, you have your like My Chemical Romance, Aiden, taking those goth aesthetics and applying it to like the emo screamo post-hardcore stuff.
You have your AFI still.
Yeah, I think the true goth subculture went a little more underground during this time period. It's much more into like dark wave, deeper into industrial, like fairly really obscure industrial, because it had just been so mainstream in the 90s.
Yeah,
it goes back underground for a while. It has its like kind of big mainstream aesthetic is carried on, but as far as like a continuation of the subculture, and this is a much less active time period for goth rock. And then there's like weird death rock stuff that I've absolutely never heard of, which is the majority of death rock. So
yeah, death rock as a genre is like weird as shit. It's just like it means a lot of different things, and it's not clear what makes something actually death rock. And it's like bands you've never heard of for the most part. It's very underrepresented.
I think also a genre where there's like the 80s death rock sound, and then there's a lot of horror punk bands that are maybe more in line with like Sam Hain that people call death rock.
Yeah.
I think death rock is a genre yeah, I think death rock is a genre that gets mislabeled often.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like scrolling just to see like what else even like jumps out, like the deeper cut stuff. Like you got a Meteors record, you got
an Unknown Henson record.
Yeah. Yuck. Well, you mentioned Aiden earlier too. He's another yuck.
Yeah.
We've got the Phenomenauts. They're borderline. They're like sci-fi themed rockabilly.
Yeah. Which that's a good talking point here. This is that time period. Gimmick punks. Yeah. Yeah, it is that era. I guess ultimately psychobilly is gimmick punks. Horror punk is gimmick punks. Like it goes. Is that the first gimmick punk stuff? I guess cowpunk is one of the first gimmick punks too. Yeah.
But I think it's the Misfits kind of predate a lot of the bigger cowpunk bands. But yeah, it's it's funny. All gimmicks. Yeah, I do think this is a specific time period where it's just like, I think psychobillies were like the dominant of these type of bands at the moment, because why was that one still so big at this point? Is it just purely because of like Hellcat Records and like?
It's interesting. It seems like there was it's a post swing revival ska boom period of deeply subcultured punk, with for some reason psychobilly being the next one to have its cultural moment. Because I feel like psychobilly really doesn't, like, you can name psychobilly stuff, like, but I feel like you're stretching it a lot. You're having to be like the Stray Cats and even like the Meteors, like who else? Wanabats.
Yeah, like Wanabats and Batmobile.
We've talked about Batmobile.
But those feel more 80s, 90s. And even then, while I guess they fall under that psychobilly category, but they feel more just like rockabilly bands.
Yeah.
In the way that Reverend Horton Heat feels more like a rockabilly band.
Yeah. It's very scattered, and there's very few bands that are doing the full on like Cramps like horror aesthetic until post swing revival.
Yeah. Yeah, but there was a little blip of psychobilly kind of being big, and 2004 I think might have been like the biggest the blip ever got, or just during this time period. And our album is probably one of the biggest that fit in that specific sound. So let's get into the record.
Yeah.
So you were just gonna look for a psychobilly record for us to talk about, and you sent me, there it is, and just a link to the album, and it is Hell Yeah by the Horrorpops.
She's the one that always stands with a smile. She's pure and bright and bathed in some kind of
band, the Horrorpops, are from Copenhagen, Denmark. They formed in 1996, and this is their debut full-length album, released February 10th, 2004, on Hellcat Records. And we already mentioned it, but it's the same year on Hellcat Records, The Necromantics, Dead Girls Don't Cry, and Tiger Army 3. Also, Lars Frederiksen and the Bastards album, Viking. Lars Frederiksen feels psychobilly adjacent, too. And the personnel on this record is Patricia Day on vocals and double bass, Niedermeyer on drums, Karsten on guitar, Kim Necroman on guitar, and Kaz the Clash on rhythm guitar. And yeah, so let's hit a couple of those things really quick first. Let's go in order. Formed in 1996, and they don't get their debut album out until 2004. So the way the band formed is when Patricia Day's band, Peanut Pump Gun, horrible name, opened for the Necromantics at some festival in Denmark. She met Kim Necroman, and they hit it off immediately. They became friends and decided to start a new band together where they swap instruments. So Patricia was playing guitar in Peanut Pump Gun, and Kim plays the double bass in the Necromantics. And so they were like, how about we start a band where we're not as comfortable with our instruments, I guess is the thinking behind that. And so they bring people in to play. Karsten and Niedermeyer were both in a band called Strawberry Slaughterhouse. And the group also features go-go dancers on stage, Camilla and Millie, who worked at the body piercing shop that Patricia Day also worked at. Of course she did. So, I was like, what? Why did they take so long between forming and putting anything out? Well, in 1999, they recorded it's supposed to be a promo demo that they were meant to be sending out to try and get signed. They recorded 7 of the songs that are on this record. That demo leaked, and then 2 of the songs on that demo became club hits in Denmark, Danish club hits. Ghouls and Psycho Bitches Out of Hell were the 2 songs that they're yeah, these are smash hits in clubs in Denmark. It's just what? Why? What clubs? And
Denmark
they didn't
allows their citizens to do too many drugs.
Denmark does? That's Netherlands.
That's the Netherlands. Yeah, I always get those two confused.
The Dutch and the Danish, they are slightly different, though they are neighbors. So I don't know how.
They're not that different. Come for me, Dutch and Danish listeners. We're gonna get hits in
oh yeah. We always whenever
about the Horrorpops. So
Denmark. Denmark's a weird country because it's it's part of Scandinavia, but also it's still attached to mainland Europe. It's funny. It's are you really Scandinavian or you just want to be? No, we had Vikings.
All Germanic is what I'm getting at here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Europe has this whole Scandinavian countries. The Scandinavian, it's the non-Germany, Poland countries. The Scandinavian countries, Denmark, Holland, they all have this weird fascination with 50s American culture, because it's a really big subculture in Sweden too, where they just they buy American 50s, maybe some early 60s American cars, rust as shit. They just get them running and they drive them around all over Sweden or whatever. It's it's really, really into it, really committed to a bit as a lifestyle. I forget what that's called. There's a name for that subculture.
Well, you get it in Asian countries too.
Yeah, but see, yeah, you do. But that also got imported real early. Aleki, as a, Japanese garage rock starts so early in the 60s, largely because they were just importing all kinds of shit from the US because they could, but also they were manufacturing a bunch of stuff. They started making cheap guitars and to be sold in department stores in the US because everyone was well, guitars are it now.
Oh, and America was also occupying a shitload of Asian countries too at that time period, and so I don't really know why. I guess you could no, because not even then. I was gonna say Americans didn't really occupy Europe that much. That as long as they did in Asia.
Well, they did in Germany, but that's it, really.
Yeah. So is it just like stuff is getting out of Germany, and maybe that's why that kind of it's getting imported over there, and then it's being exported out of Germany into the other like countries in that area? I don't know. The
thing though is like I don't think that Germany has a big like 50s scene. Like I don't think of a German psychobilly scene.
Not really. There probably is one, but it's not like it's probably more derivative of the Danish ones, you know.
I don't know. This isn't necessarily meant to be a history of psychobilly, and if there's somebody out there who can connect the dots for me a little better, but I've always struggled with it. I'm just like, it just seems very, I mean, for one, like it just seems so anti-European to be interested in old American culture, like to be interested in American culture in general.
Though to be fair, there's people here still obsessed with 50s American culture, so like you know, it's a thing.
It makes sense here because it's at least like, well, you know, it's what my grandpa had.
Yeah, the rock and roll cafes. I guess we don't have nearly as many of those as we used to. Around here, it's just like Highway 55 diners. Like that's all we have now that kind of fits that.
The Betty Boopification of 50s diners.
The pink Cadillacing of yeah. So, okay. What is it about this album that made you go, there it is, hell yeah, let's do hell yeah?
So I wanted to I was looking at the psychobilly stuff. I went ahead just for the sake of retracing my thought process. When you pull up psychobilly on Rate Your Music, you get a lot of stuff that I don't call psychobilly, but I understand why it's subgenre, secondary tag psychobilly. I'm not going to do a Gun Club record. I would rather talk about a Gun Club record any other time of the year. I'm not going to put them into that corner because they're a bigger band than that. There's like X stuff on here. We've talked about the Cramps, so it felt like let's not do the Cramps again. A lot of other stuff like seemed like it might be it's psychobilly was more secondary to it being primarily like a garage punky kind of thing. We've talked about Reverend Horton Heat recently.
Yeah, we did that one outside of the Halloween Spooktacular too.
I briefly considered the Flesh Eaters, but again, it felt like punk blues, garage punk. It's bigger. Like they have the horror aesthetic that puts them closer to psychobilly, but musically it felt like they're something bigger than psychobilly. It's a lot of Cramps records. When you're looking at what's popular on here, most of it is Cramps records. And then like weirdly stuff I don't know, like the Coffin Shakers, like slightly newer stuff.
Yeah.
This one, I want to say it's second page, and that's where it got. I was like, okay, Tiger Army, maybe. There's a couple Tiger Armies. And then I saw that Horrorpops record album cover, and I was just like, I know at least half of that record already because we had it on your iTunes. And so I was like, well, it was for pushing me over. Like I was like, all right, this is a significant record within psychobilly if it's within a certain bubble, like a certain time period of psychobilly that I think is interesting to talk about, which we've talked about a lot already. And we have personal history with it. So let's get into the personal history.
Yeah. So for some reason, I racked my brain trying to remember like where I heard them first or why I heard them. I have no idea. I cannot figure out like where I saw them or heard them or anything. My guess is maybe I saw a video or something. I don't know.
Were you like exploring Hellcat Records?
That could be it.
I could see it being on a download thread and a message board too, maybe.
Yeah, I could see that. I feel like I cannot figure out where I first even heard them. Like I just don't even know like so maybe you're right. Maybe I heard a compilation because when I would have heard them would have been probably 2005 or 2006. Which it would have been right after the first and second Horrorpops albums. So, yeah.
Maybe some information that I can provide, my perspective from how I was introduced to them can connect the dots. My recollection of it was, I remember it being in your iTunes. I remember this being after you had gone to college, and I associate this with a lot of the music that you listened to with your girlfriend at the time, your freshman year college girlfriend.
But no, I gave this band to her. So I had it before her. So like I can't even figure out, like, I really am just like, and maybe it was on like a Give 'Em the Boot comp, because I've definitely listened to one of those in college. Maybe I was like looking up Reverend Horton Heat, because I did know Reverend Horton Heat by this point. Maybe just from the Misfits, because I would have been like devouring everything Misfits around this time period too. So you're right. It could just been like a message board thing or a blog thing. The universe
wanted you to find the Horrorpops.
They wanted me to find the Horrorpops and listen to 4 to 6 of these songs only, not the whole album.
The other thing I was thinking, was this these were the only songs that someone at your school had in their iTunes library, or was this a handful of songs that you took from, what was the shitty peer-to-peer that you used?
Aries. Yeah, because they had blocked Kazaa and LimeWire at the school. And it's very funny. There's a guy there who I went to school with. His name is Jonathan Ammons. He's a musician too. That's why I specifically mentioned his name. He's been putting out music for like 20 fucking years. Crazy stuff.
a lot of ambient.
Yeah, a lot of electronic music, but like lots of other stuff too. But we remember asking him, like, how do we download stuff? And he's like, I'll never tell. He used some software. Like, we were like, we know LimeWire and Kazaa are blocked. What works? And he's like, I'm not going to tell you, because if I tell you, they'll figure it out. And I was like, and then like I had heard of Aries, and I was like, was it Aries? And he's like, no, I don't use Aries. So even he was like, that works, but no, it's not Aries. My guess is
SoulSeek?
I wonder if he was using SoulSeek.
Probably SoulSeek.
Still going. Still works. Still the main way to get a lot of music.
You can illegally get everything.
Yeah, still
on it. Still,
you gotta wait maybe a couple weeks if it's brand new. But if it's big enough, it might be there first week. But
it might be there early if it's big enough.
Yeah. Weird that it's still, it's torrenters who are using SoulSeek still primarily. So torrenters are still out here. They're still torrenting everything. Movie, TV, music. They're torrenting it all still. Comics. But I don't even have patience for it anymore.
I don't want file management.
Yeah. SoulSeek's enough. It's pretty streamlined. Yeah, so I definitely downloaded it through Aries, but like I said, like, why would I have wanted to download it through Aries? It has to be like I said, it has to be like a message board or something. I heard a song, saw a video. We're still in MySpace era. Maybe somebody had it on their profile or something like that. And I was just like, that's pretty cool. And I threw their name into the Aries thing. And those are like the 6 songs that it pulled. And I liked them enough to listen to them and put on like burn CDs, but not enough to like listen to more by them.
Yeah. We never made a point of downloading the rest of this album. I remember having this in your iTunes, having the album cover in your iTunes. We took the time to go put the album cover in the iTunes library. Didn't bother to download the rest of the album.
Because maybe it's because like one or two of those songs that was just like, that's fine. I don't love that song. And I was just like, if I only have 6 songs and don't love all of them, I'm not going to love every song on the LP. I have probably listened to this album in full before this week because nothing on here sounded new to me. Like, I feel like I'd heard everything on this record before, maybe a couple times. So like, I probably eventually got around to it, but never enough to like download it myself. So maybe like streamed it on Spotify in like 2016 or something like that. I don't know why I would have listened to the whole thing, but so, okay. Horrorpops are they like number 3 on the list, or are they even higher for like the psychobilly from this like Hellcat post-Epitaph Hellcat era of psychobilly? I think we know now Tiger Army has the staying power and people still like them.
Yeah, Tiger Army is the one that has stuck. I think Necromantics being older, having like recorded putting stuff out from earlier on, because they formed in like 89.
Yeah, Necromantics have been around forever. They were there for the first psychobilly boom and in the 90s.
Because like then it is Horrorpops. But there's 3 Horrorpops records.
Yeah, there's only three 2004, 2005, and like 2008, and they were done.
Though currently active?
Yeah.
Question mark?
They are active currently. They had planned on doing like a reunion tour, and then COVID happened. Part of it too, though, is Patricia Day was diagnosed with cancer, and so one of the things they were just gonna reunite and tour to like help fund that, because I guess Denmark doesn't have. That doesn't seem right. Denmark doesn't have.
Well, I think they're in LA now.
Are they still in LA? Okay, that makes sense. If they're living in the US, she's got
probably illegally.
You think?
I don't know. Europeans do that a lot.
I wonder. Just go back to Denmark and get your free healthcare. But I don't know. Maybe they're just like, hey, you haven't been paying taxes.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how that works.
Yeah,
you probably have to go like establish residency again for a certain period of time.
Yeah, like we don't know if you're real Danes. But, yeah, I don't know. But they wanted to fund it through doing a reunion, and then someone set up a GoFundMe to help fund it during like the pandemic, and now they are playing shows. I don't know how recently they've played, but I genuinely, when I read that, I was like, I need to look up and make sure she's okay real quick before we do an episode on this. And she like posted like last month, like happy birthday to Niedermeyer, because she's like super close with that guy still. So I was like, okay, if you're still posting, then you're probably all right. So yeah, but I've not seen any like real updates on her, but I think they played some shows too at the tail end of last year. So yeah, okay. They're like one of the bigger ones. They're one of the last big ones to kind of be like added to the psychobilly canon, which I feel like that genre is probably like starving for any new bands. So that's why you'll always be like, I've never heard of most of these artists, because they just will accept anyone into the ranks. Like, yeah, we're going to talk about you, random Los Angeles band that has 2 albums.
2023 psychobilly albums. There's a Coffin. 2023. There's a Coffin Shakers record. There's a Reverend Horton Heat record. Of course, there's something called Count Spookula that is called Halloween music, rock and roll, rockabilly, musical comedy, psychobilly, horror punk, novelty, heavy metal. So it's clearly just a joke project. And a Batmobile record. That's it. Those are your 4. And then there's something called Robert's Laffit by Blue Dolphin that's primaried post-punk garage punk with a psychobilly secondary. They are a Houston, Texas band.
So yeah, no new psychobilly really. Man, if Batmobile is like, oh, thank God there's a new Batmobile album, you know.
With artwork that looks like a children's album.
And Reverend Horton Heat, who's just like his own thing. So our only true one is the Coffin Shakers album. I did not know there was a new Reverend Horton Heat album.
And the Coffin Shakers are Swedish.
Of course they are. That Reverend Horton Heat is called Roots of the Rev, Volume 1, which makes me think covers album.
Yeah.
Ready Teddy's on there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this record in particular, what did you think of it?
So when I put it on, first song, my first note for this record is I'm really annoyed that this is not bad. Like, this is too enjoyable. Overall, full runtime of the record doesn't hold up through the whole thing.
40 minutes. Way too long.
It's too long. There's too much filler, forgettable material. There's too much deviation from the psychobilly genre, which I can't believe that I want the psychobilly genre to be so strict, but
stay in your lane.
There's a random ska song on here that does nothing. And there's like some surf stuff that I'm like, I'm more interested in surf guitar being a little bit of but there's like a full on bad Miserlou like song on here.
This record has 3 guitarists, and I'm like, well, one of them, it's not his main instrument, so like that's not a good sign.
But there's a lot of songs that are consistently enjoyable, and I'm the things that kept me like most engaged for like half of the record. Well, immediately I was hit by a lot of the melodies remind me of like Adam Ant, weirdly, very specifically Adam Ant.
Huh. I don't get that at all.
But for most of the record, for like at least half of the record, I'm like, who does she sound like? It's driving me insane. She sounds exactly like someone else. And I'm like, it's not Gwen Stefani. It's not Gwen Stefani. Like, I know specifically it's not Gwen Stefani. I know you could make comparisons to her.
Yeah.
Like, that's probably the most logical comparison that
there's similarities
that she's gotten. I've seen that comparison. But I'm like, who is it? There's a tone to her voice, the melodies that she's singing, and then especially when you add in those harmonies. And then it hit me. I'm like, she sounds like Kate Pearson of B-52.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what I was thinking? I was doing the exact same thing in my head. I was like, who is this person she sounds identical to? And the closest I got was Brody from The Distillers.
I got Brody in the huskiness, which I was like, but Brody's so husky. And this isn't that. And Brody's not like melodically, she doesn't sing like this. But it's Kate Pearson. Like, it's.
Yeah, it is. It's Kate Pearson.
Exactly.
She doesn't have Kate's range that she has, but she's got her bratty, brash voice that when Kate gets that low voice in her, it is. Which
I was like, that's really cool. Like, that actually like upped my enjoyment through most of the record. So like when she sounds the most like her, and especially when there's like a lot of like harmonies, I'm like, I like that. That sounds really cool. But it also made me like, why is psychobilly such a joke to me? But the B-52s absolutely works for how silly they are.
Actually, they're sillier. Like, they have just like pure, just like comedy songs in the B-52s. And this band, for the most part, is trying to write. I don't feel like they're writing comedy songs. They have funny lines or funny. That feels though more just like English isn't your first language. That's why it's kind of funny. But
yeah. But it's like, and it sent me on like a whole like, why? When does it work? When is it not? Like, what are the qualities of psychobilly as a genre where so much of it doesn't work? I think a lot of it's a quality issue. I think also there's like a degree of like self-awareness to like a B-52s or even like an Aquabats, if you want to go like in terms of like gimmicky, goofy bands, where like the B-52s are like, it's camp. Like which also on a related note, I was just thinking about how I don't think people understand what camp means anymore, because I feel like people want to use camp to describe things that are tacky, but I'm like, no, but it's got to be tacky and gay. Like, camp is very gay. Like, it's very queer culture, like alternative 60s, 70s, which maybe that's just my own narrow, like John Waters.
Well, no, because in England, camp is very gay too. Like, it's still like when you say things are camp, they're specifically referring to like the gay subculture elements of it. So yeah, campy. I mean, I guess you can be like Batman and Robin is a campy TV show. It's like, and
still very homoerotic.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's true. And I never really think of that specifically, but yeah.
They really had to make a point of putting women on that show.
You think people are mixing kitsch with camp? Is that what you think's happening?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Like, because there's definitely like the ugly side of kitsch of your fedora Al from Al's Toy Barn, tiki culture, Smash Mouth. And even then, kitsch, though, like, I can still appreciate more than psychobilly. There's too many hats on hats with psychobilly.
Yeah. Well, it's because you're going Misfits, but rockabilly is really it's really how most people interpret psychobilly to be.
Yeah.
They're like, cred-wise, they're going to name drop the Cramps, but they're not doing the Cramps because Cramps, nobody sound like the Cramps didn't do the double, the upright double bass, and like didn't have a bass at all for a very long period of their discography. So like, yeah, none of these psychobilly bands are doing the Cramps.
The Cramps are doing something so abrasive, even when I feel like they got more polished and focused as a band later, they still held on to an abrasiveness that I don't feel. There's an abrasiveness to psychobilly, but I don't think it's an intentional abrasiveness. I don't think it's I want to use the most horrible sounding fuzz pedal that I can find. It's, how do I make this guitar amp sound good?
Attention to this record and listening to it, I was like, man, none of these people are good guitarists. Like, the guitar work is not very good on this record. I think Patricia pulled off the double bass better than Kim pulled off the guitar. They had to bring in their like guy who's like, I guess that guy who played rhythm guitar was in the old lineup of the band because he was gone by the time this record came out. Cash, the Clash, or whatever his name was, he's gone.
Johnny Clash.
Kaz the Clash, he's gone by the time the record comes out, which maybe means he's just on the old songs, maybe, because they just used those they didn't re-record them for this record. They just used those tracks that they had recorded and put them with these tracks, which they recorded the same place in LA. So yeah, I guess that was just them being like, okay, let's go back to our basement, because I feel like that's what it is. If they named it, but it was just like, it sounds like all these songs sound like they were recorded at the exact same time, but really they're 5 years apart, but they sound exactly the same. I mean, that could be the mastering, I guess, but yeah, I would love to get like the full track list of the original. I don't know if I've seen that, to see which ones are let's see if I can pull that up, to see which ones are the ones that they added later. Because I feel like listening to it, I can tell which ones are the ones they added later to fill it out. Because there are some songs on here I'm like, man, this is not very good. I really did not like Girl in a Cage. Is that the ska song you were talking about?
I think so.
It's got upstrokes. But my takeaway was just a nothing song. I did not like Cool Flat Top.
Cool Flat Top is one that we had.
Yeah.
And it's been a running joke ever since then for us. the reference that we're making. Yeah, not a very good song. Psycho Bitches Out of Hell is okay. But it drags.
That one was
them
doing the Cramps the most.
Yeah.
That was weird that was like a club single.
Strictly at psychobilly clubs, I guess. I don't know.
Ghouls was the other one that was like part of that single. And that's like one of the better songs. Yeah. Dotted with Hearts is weird as shit, where they just are like, the guy's doing the Monster Mash guy voice, but he thinks he's doing Elvis.
Dotted with Hearts, that song specifically, I was so frustrated with because it's mostly great. It starts with a cool riff. It's got a super memorable chorus. The harmonies are beautiful. She sounds great on this song. Like, it's one of the strongest songs on here. And then they absolutely threw it away with not just the dumb talking bridge part, which was like, I get why you're doing that. Like, put that in one of the dumber songs. Like, it would have worked. But it goes on too long. The song itself goes on too long. And then they botched the ending of it with the ooh,
yeah.
Like,
you're doing the wrong. You're mixing
outro. You lost it. It started so good.
What's a Baby Lou tattoo? Baby Lou tattoo. Baby Lou? I don't know. That line just made no sense to me. It's like, is this another just Danish?
The only thing that comes up when I search for Baby Lou is a VeggieTales character, so I don't think that's it.
Baby Lou tattoo. That one annoyed me just because the way she just did that song. I don't know. And then the surf song at the end is not very good either. It's like, y'all are not good enough to do this. What's Under My Bed wasn't great either. The standouts to me, Mistake. That was like their single. Like, they made the video for it. They played on Jimmy Kimmel. They played that song. They were big enough to play on Jimmy Kimmel. But I will say it's Jimmy Kimmel in 2004. It's like the other late night show that just started. It wasn't like an institution, and it was on another network that's never had a late night show. And a lot of places didn't carry it because in Charlotte, they didn't carry Jimmy Kimmel for years.
Yeah.
I knew this because they would always be like, Chris Jericho is going to be on Jimmy Kimmel tonight. And I was like, how do you get that? On ABC. And I'd be like, not our ABC.
Yeah, it's like Rocket from the Crypt being on, Craig Kilborn?
Yeah, right.
Like, it's not that impressive.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
So I like Mistake. I like Where They Wander. That was a pretty fast, fun, catchy song. I like that one. With some woes. I thought Emotional Abuse had some, like, interesting playing on it. It was a little slower song, but, like, I don't know. There was some, like, a stop-start kind of guitar thing in that I thought was unique, which might just have been like, wait, how do I do this again? Really? But Julia's all right. Drama Queen's pretty good. Like, I get why I'm like, yeah, about 6 of these songs is worth listening to, and not really worth going out of your way to listen to the rest of the record. I assume the 6 that I had were the ones a lot of them were the ones I knew that I thought were still good. But no, I knew Baby Lou Tattoo, and I did not really like that one again.
The ones I remember were Julia, I want to say Drama Queen, Mistake, Cool Flat Top, Psycho Bitches Out of Hell. Those are the ones that I remember.
Yeah.
You maybe had Baby Lou Tattoo, but it didn't make an impression on me then.
I did have some from the next record too. So, but
yeah.
I started to listen to that one, and I'm like, man, this is not as good as the one before. And I don't know these as well. So I may only been like 1 or 2 off that one. But so the band doesn't record the record and the rest of the record until 2003. They play their record release show in Amoeba Records in 2004. They were then supposed to follow that up with a tour of the U.S., but then got held up by immigration, just not allowed to do it. So they had to go back home. They were then able to join the Offspring on a European tour with only 3 days notice. It was like they called them and said, hey, you want to do this? Which to me means somebody was supposed to come with them, and they couldn't get in. And so then they do that, and then they do their own little headlining tour of Europe. Then they come back to the States to play Jimmy Kimmel, and they're in the movie Punk Rock Holocaust, which Dylan and I actually discussed as our movie to do for Master Punk Theater. I don't think I knew that they were in that movie, and it kind of would have been fit a little bit more to do that one. But that's like a super low budget.
Yeah, that's the Warped Tour shot. It's all like shitty digicam, maybe not even digicam. It's probably to cassette tape. Extremely low budget, non-actors.
Yeah,
I think Steven from Steven's Untitled Rock Show's in there. Lots of bands from the Warped Tour.
The Aquabats are in there. Horrorpops are in there.
It's on Internet Archive, so that one would have been more work to watch.
Yeah.
Clearly not for you, because you would have watched it on your phone screen in bed.
Yeah.
I can't believe that.
I don't think we talked about that on the main show.
That's on the Patreon.
Yeah. It probably would not be an enjoyable movie. It'd be enjoyable to be like, wow, they got those guys to be in it? Weird. Okay. But by the end of the year, both Millie and Karsten would quit the band. Millie, the go-go dancer, would quit the band because she went back to school. And Karsten quit the band because he had a baby and was like, I want to stay home. And the Horrorpops want to tour way more than... I think that's why Millie quit too, because there's too much touring.
Yeah, okay, this is a bone I have to pick. They have a go-go dancer. Two go-go dancers. But they're a 50s band? You're getting your decades mixed up. Go-go is 60s. It's mod. It's soul. It's not rockabilly.
Patricia and Kim are married, so they stuck it out. I think they're still together. There's a picture of them together last year, so I assume they're still good, still together. Very little sourcing on anything like that. In a little piece of fun serendipitous timing, Zia Records just reissued it with their own special color in July of this year. So people are thinking about this record again, apparently.
Zia does special pressings of Superchunk records that they don't sell. Zio does special pressings of weird stuff. I'm like, y'all are only selling these online and in Zia stores in Arizona and Nevada.
And so I found 2 reviews researching for this that had some stuff in it that I kind of wanted to bring up. So there's a Punk News review from 2004 that says this record will inevitably be ignored by image-conscious indie snobs put off by the band's less than serious imagery. They'll go into this expecting some level of irony to justify the band's over-the-top visuals, but won't find it. However, artwork aside, Hell Yeah is packed with so much infectious songwriting that there's no need to fall back on the usual trappings of the psychobilly genre. A couple things there. The indie crowd is not going to care about this Horrorpops record. Not because they're it's not ironic enough. It's no, they just don't like it. Most people don't like it. It's not a thing that people are into. But there's no need to fall back on the usual trappings of the psychobilly genre. I think it's got a lot of the trappings of the psychobilly genre. I don't know what you're talking about not having them. You hear that clicking bass. There's one.
The unnecessary clicking bass. So on the clicking bass, I had to search why does psychobilly have clicking bass again, because I'm just what is it?
How are you making it make that noise?
There is too much involved in psychobilly bass. Rockabilly too. Rockabilly does the clicking bass thing too. The Rockabilly revival stuff does a lot of that. It's a callback to a lot of rockabilly not necessarily having a drummer. So the bass player is overplaying and basically plucking the strings, making them slap against
the neck
to make it click. So you have a pronounced click, click, click meter. You have that timekeeping really pronounced from the bass. It just really latched onto that in the psychobilly. And there's so much involved with you have the acoustic tone pickup. You have a pickup to get your good actual bass fundamental acoustic tone, all of your harmonic overtones, the things that you want to hear from a bass, the point of playing a double bass. And then most of them also play with what's called a clicky. There's a specific clicky pickup that is attached to I think usually the underside of the neck the fretboard that it's not a fretboard because there's not frets on it, but you know what I mean, that extends past the neck over the body. So they like put that up underneath there just to pick up the click sound, and then like have to like EQ it to get it the right frequency to where they want it to sound. It's like, this is too much work to make a sound that's not good.
That clicking thing too, like in my like mixing classes that I've taken, like usually my instructor was like, throw a high pass filter on there so you could take out any of the unnecessary kind of like room sounds out of it, and those clicks would have been gone if you throw that high pass filter on there and take them out.
Yeah.
Like you're trying to get rid of like the shuffling of the feet or somebody like swaying. Like that's what that filter's supposed to do, and that would cut the shit. That would cut that out so much. But also like the usual trappings of the psychobilly genre. What else are the usual trappings? Songs about flat tops. I don't know. What are the trappings? Horror themes. They do that.
Yeah.
They're not like overtly horror-y, I guess.
Not as much. So a little more downplayed. Though they are called the Horrorpops.
Yeah, right.
So it's there.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. This Punk News doesn't pay their writers, so I guess that's why I'm worrying about too much. But on the other hand, there is an absolutely horrendous all music review that I just wanted to read some of the worst parts of, because it's just like, you should not be reviewing this record, is how my takeaway of that was. You're not the right person for this article. So there's key things that I pulled out of it. So somewhere in the shadowy world that twists between the Misfits and the Cramps lie the undisputed tyrants of Danish psychobilly, the Horrorpops. Okay, number one, tyrants. What? Tyrants? You know what a tyrant is? Tyrants are like bad. Tyrants are like oppressive rulers.
There's some like Horrorpops are like the gatekeepers of psychobilly.
Right. That would be, the tyrants. In all reality, it doesn't even make sense because they're not the biggest one either. Like that would probably go to like the necromantics. Danish psychobilly tyrants, whatever. As a group, the Horrorpops sound like a small army, and like the Misfits, they fill each chorus with wordless melodies and unison replies, much like Walk Among Us, Astro Zombies, and I Turned Into a Martian. Small army, not really. They got some woes, I guess, but they're not. Woes are just a thing in pop punk and punk in general. Like they're not even like Misfitsy woes on this album.
No, they're not.
The dark daddy-o romp cool flat top is better than anything the Cramps have done in the last 10 years, and even the obligatory surf instrumental Horror Beach transcends the banality of the billion or so revivalists who have nearly beaten the genre out of existence.
There's not that many. It's not better than anything that the Cramps did.
They said in 10 years. All right, what's in the 10 years that this article in 2004 was written that the Cramps had done? So between 1994 and 2004, it's better than
Flame Job came out in 94.
Nope.
And that record's great.
So not that one. Big Beat from Badsville's in 1997.
Pretty well regarded.
Friends of Dope Island is in 2003. And How to Make a Monster is in 2004.
And that's archival.
Okay. So, still, shut up.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Nothing on that one song in particular is supposed to be better than anything. No, it's not even the best song on this album. So, shut up. And then, Horror Beach transcends the banality of a billion so revivalists. Which revivalists? The surf revivalists? Because that's a surf song.
Maybe that's what they're talking about.
I don't know. I read that article and I was like, you know nothing about this genre. You only know the Misfits and the Cramps because you mentioned them both twice in the article.
Yeah.
I think All Music does pay its writers, so that's something. Yeah. So it's too long. It's ultimately my takeaway was this is a pretty mediocre record. There's some good stuff, there's some bad stuff, and there's a lot of forgettable stuff.
As an album, I think it's pretty bad. I do think there's a lot of stuff here that is surprisingly good, but nothing that I'm like that I really want to come back to.
No, I don't want to come back to this album. And like I couldn't even get through that second album. I was like, I don't want to listen to this. Yeah. I don't know. This one's what are we gonna rate it? I'm gonna give it a 3.
Yeah, it's a 3. just for the surprising quality of about a third of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems fair. Because there is like a couple things I like. So, yeah. Pick and choose. This is one where you just like pick and choose the couple songs you like. Don't worry about the whole thing. It's 40 minutes, and you're going to be like, I wish I hadn't listened to all 40 minutes of that. So, all right. So next week, it's going to be my turn to select, and I'm taking the bullet of the bullet of horror punk and / death rock. I have a proposition. I haven't discussed this with you yet. This band is not technically a horror punk band. They're a hardcore band that sings about horror themes.
Well, that's what horror punk is. It's just punk that sings about horror.
But it's more like a metalcore band. But there's two ways I can take this, and I haven't decided. Well, I wanted to see if you would accept this. This is an option, or if I should go with my second choice. So I'm thinking about the band Zombie Apocalypse, the Shai Hulud side project that sings exclusively about zombies. They did a split with a band called Send More Paramedics, which is a UK like thrashcore band that also sings exclusively about zombies. They did a split together. It's like a 24 minute split. The reason why I'm thinking of that one is because the other Zombie Apocalypse stuff is like 10 to 15 minutes long. So I didn't think we'd be able to get that much out of one of their records. Is this acceptable, or should I do Violent World, the Misfits cover album that consists entirely of hardcore bands?
Oh man, if you hadn't told me what the other option was, I would have just been like, yeah, when else are we going to talk about Zombie Apocalypse? But man, the Violent World comp is such a like one of the most important pieces of Misfits media.
And I didn't want to do the Misfits because I'm like, we've talked about the Misfits too much. I don't really want to listen to the Misfits albums. Like, so that's why I thought Violent World. But then the Zombie Apocalypse thing hit me. So like, Zombie
Apocalypse. I'll say this: Zombie Apocalypse is acceptable to me if that's where your heart leads you.
I've got others I was leaning on, and I was like, I don't actually want to do episodes on these because they're just really only appeal to you and me, and that's it. I'll tell you about those later. But well, let's talk numbers then. If we're talking numbers, we're gonna do better on that Misfits comp covers record. You know what? Maybe let's do let's do Violent World. I think there's a lot to talk about on that compilation. I'll just like explain my thought process on the Zombie Apocalypse one. I'll talk about it in my almost selected section when we do that. So, all right, next week we're going to do Violent World, the Misfits tribute album consisting of bands like Snapcase and Pennywise and Therapy?
Yeah. I predict that episode could very well be an all-time ratings monster. I don't know.
So? We'll see.
Am I going to take the under on that? I don't know how betting works.
I don't know. I hear them say, you want it over or under? Like, what does that mean? Over what? Under what?
A bet on the over means you think both teams will combine to score more goals, points, or runs. An under bet means you think that there will be less than the total listed. I don't know what that means or how to apply that here.
We're Googling over and under, and we still don't get it.
Very specific.
Yeah. All right, let's do Violent World. We'll talk about that one next week. So thank you, everyone, for listening. You can follow us on all forms of social media. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, X.com, Threads. We're on Blue Sky. I got two Blue Sky invites if anybody needs them. Dylan's probably got one too.
Yeah, I got at least 3. I don't know. DM us. Well, we'll shoot you one.
We'll give you one. It'll still be there.
Yeah, no one's gonna claim it.
And
no one's gonna move over there until it's open.
Yeah.
Like, which we're getting closer and closer to like Twitter, like just absolutely not working.
Yeah. Searching is turned into nothing on Twitter. So yeah.
And Elon's getting sued by like everybody right now.
But yes, all of those at Punk Lotto Pod. Check out Dylan's band major awards on all the social medias, as well as majorwords.bandcamp.com. And
go follow us. I need to make this a meme, but I'll just explain it because I'm probably never going to make it. You know, the looking out the window, smiling, and then like the sad, like, looking at the wall, other side of it. All of the social media, like the Instagram, the TikTok, is the sad dark side. Or not TikTok, the Twitter, Instagram is the sad dark side where I'm controlling it, and then the TikTok is like the smiling, looking out the window side where Josh is using the TikTok. I'm not doing the TikTok. It's just like the difference in like the emotional health of the two people running our social media.
It is funny because like the first time I actually like looked at the videos that were on the TikTok, I was like, Dylan didn't make these. I could just tell like right away. Somebody else made these. All right, everyone. Thank you all so much, and good night, boils and ghouls. I mean, we're really dropping the ball on like the spooky gimmick, but we will talk to you next time.
Isn't this a gruesome party? All the weirdies are here. You can't tell which is which without a program. Oh, there's the Wawa Doozy Witch. And there's Dracula dancing with Vigor. Till rigor mortis sets in. For this sweet night we wait all year. Now don't you try to disappear.